Ever get the urge to just, I don't know, really sink your teeth into some channeled messages?
Yeah, sometimes.
Well, that's what we're doing today, diving into the world of Tobias.
Oh, Tobias, interesting.
Yeah, he's got this whole collection of talks from like the early 2000s,
Yeah.
2000 to 2003 to be exact. And let me tell you, this isn't your average spiritual self-help stuff.
Oh,
How so? Tobias was talking about some pretty radical ideas for the time. New energies transforming the earth, past lives even.
Oh.
You ready for this? Becoming creators of our own reality.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. That's a lot to unpack. And he had a whole following, right? The Crimson Circle.
You know it. But before we get into all that, let's back up a bit. Who was this Tobias and what was his whole deal?
Well, think of Tobias as a spiritual entity, kind of like a guiding force, you know?
Right.
And he was coming through this guy, Jeffrey Hopp.
Okay.
But Tobias called him Pauldry. So imagine this. A room full of spiritual seekers, all gathered to hear these messages about, well, pretty much changing everything.
So this second creation thing he always talked about, what was that all about?
It was huge in his teachings, like a central theme. Tobias was basically saying, humanity's going through this massive upgrade, shifting to a whole new way of existing. He called it the second creation.
Second creation.
Uh-huh.
Sounds intense. And we're all just supposed to adapt to these, what did you call them? New energies.
Yeah, new energies transforming the earth. It's like, imagine the very fabric of reality getting a makeover, right?
Yeah.
But we're all still figuring out the new rules, like a software update or something.
Okay, I kind of get it. So what did we do? How do we adapt?
Well, according to Tobias, it starts with letting go. Letting go of all the old patterns, beliefs, anything that's not serving us anymore.
You know, that actually makes a lot of sense. It's
Why?
like to make room for the new, you got to get rid of the old.
Exactly. He talked about it like clearing out the clutter in your mental attic. Out with the old, in with the new.
Easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
So what kind of clutter are we talking about here?
Well, he talked a lot about past lives, and not just from our experiences here on Earth, but from other realms too, other dimensions, really tripping you out, right? But here's the thing. He said that as we move into this new Earth energy, all that old baggage starts to fall away.
Okay, so we're clearing out the past to make way for the future.
Mm.
But what does that feel like? I mean, is it like a clean slate, a fresh start? Or is it more complicated?
That's the thing. It's not always pretty. He said it can bring up some heavy stuff. Loneliness, emptiness, a sense of just not knowing who you are anymore.
Wow, that sounds kind of bleak.
It can be, but Tobias, he saw it differently. He said those feelings, as tough as they are, they're actually a positive sign, like a spiritual detox.
A detox. So feeling lost can actually be a good thing. I guess in a way it makes sense, right? If you're shedding old layers of yourself, there's got to be a moment where you're just raw.
Exactly, and he called this the no thing phase.
No thing. What's that supposed to mean? Are we just supposed to walk around feeling empty?
Hmm.
I don't know if I'm into that.
It's not so much about doing, but more about being. Allowing yourself to just be present with those feelings of emptiness, of not knowing, without trying to fix them or push them away.
So it's about surrendering to the process,
Yeah.
even if it's uncomfortable. Easier said than done, right?
Totally. He actually compared it to like trying to paddle upstream against a strong current. You're just exhausting yourself, getting nowhere. He told this great story about a character named Orion.
Orion.
Yeah, and Orion, he's struggling, paddling against the flow, but then he finally realizes the key is to surrender, to go with the current. That's when things start to click into place for him.
Okay, I can see how that applies to this whole no thing idea.
Yeah.
But then here's the thing that always gets me. If we're just supposed to go with the flow, how do we actually create the life we want?
Good question. And that's where Tobias introduces this really cool metaphor, the new house.
A new house. Is he
Right.
talking literally or?
Metaphorically. Think of it like this. A brand new house, completely empty. It's full of potential, but it's up to us to decide what to do with it, how to furnish it, how to make it our own.
So we're not just along for the ride. We actually have a say in how this new house, this new reality gets built.
100%. He's saying we're not just passive observers in this whole second creation thing. We are the creators.
We are the creators. I like the sound of that. But to be honest, it's a little intimidating too, isn't it? Like, what if we mess it up?
He addresses that too, don't worry. Tobias actually emphasized that there's no need to be afraid of our own creative power. He said every creation, no matter what it looks like, has its place in the grand scheme of things.
So no judgment, no right or wrong way to create.
Exactly. He wanted us to embrace the freedom of being creators, to trust that whatever we bring forth is exactly what needs to be.
That's a pretty radical concept. But if we're all creating our own realities, how do we all coexist in the same world? It seems like it would be total chaos, right?
That's where Tobias's ideas about duality come in.
Duality. That's like good versus evil, light versus dark, that kind of thing.
You got it. He said we're so used to seeing the world as this battle between opposites, but he challenged us to go beyond that.
Beyond good and bad. How is that even possible? Don't we need those distinctions?
That's the old way of thinking, the old paradigm. He said we're moving into a time where those old dualities are dissolving, and we're learning to integrate both sides, the light and the dark, within ourselves. It's about finding the divine spark in everything.
Wow, that's a big shift. So how do we actually do that? How do we move beyond judgment and see the divine in everything and everyone?
He talked about it as a shift from free will to divine will. Instead of overthinking every decision, constantly weighing the pros and cons, he said we can tap into a higher guidance.
Okay, so we're not just on our own here. There's a higher power or higher wisdom we can tap into.
Exactly. And it's not about giving up control, but rather surrendering to something bigger than ourselves, trusting that we're guided and supported every step of the way.
That actually sounds kind of freeing when you put it like that.
Yeah.
But how do we actually do that? How do we access that higher wisdom? Is it like meditation or prayer?
He had this really intriguing technique he called stepping behind the short wall.
Short wall.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. What is that?
Okay, so imagine this. There's a wall, right? And on the other side of the wall is a situation, a challenge, something that's really pushing your buttons.
Okay, I'm with you.
So instead of immediately reacting, instead of getting all caught up in the drama of it all, you take a step back. You step behind the short wall and you observe.
You observe. That's it.
Well, you observe without judgment. You find that place of neutrality, that still point within yourself. And that's the key, because from that place of stillness, you can start to see things more clearly.
So it's about creating space between ourselves and our reactions.
Precisely. And when we create that space, that's when those divine moments can happen.
Divine moments. I like how that sounds, but what are they exactly?
Tobias described them as these flashes of clarity, those aha moments where the answers we've been searching for just appear.
Like a bolt of inspiration.
Exactly. And he said these divine moments, they're always there, but we have to be open to receiving them. We have to be willing to step behind that short wall and create the space for them to come through.
So it's not about ignoring problems or pretending everything's okay, but rather shifting our perspective so we can approach challenges with more wisdom and clarity.
Exactly. He was all about empowering us to find those divine solutions within ourselves.
This is a lot to take in. Like you said, it's a whole new way of looking at the world, a whole new way of being.
It is. And he didn't just stop there. He introduced this wild concept called the language of awe.
The language of, okay, now you're just messing with me, right? What is that?
I know, right? It sounds a little out there. But Tobias described it as a new way of communicating not just with ourselves, but with the universe. And get this, he said it comes through all 7 senses.
Hold on, 7. I thought we only had 5.
That's what makes it so intriguing. He suggested we have 2 more senses beyond the usual suspects. You know, sight, smell, taste, touch, hearing. He never actually named them directly.
That's serious.
Right. But he implied they go way beyond our current understanding, operating on a completely different level.
So we're not just thinking our way to enlightenment, we're feeling, sensing, intuiting our way there.
Exactly. It's about tapping into a deeper knowing, a wisdom that goes beyond words.
I'm starting to understand why we're calling this a deep dive, because this is a lot.
And we've only just scratched the surface. He goes on to offer all sorts of practical steps for integrating the sense of divinity into our everyday lives.
Like what? Give me an example. What are these practical steps?
One of the things he emphasized was the importance of giving thanks, but not just to some external deity,
Okay.
to ourselves.
To ourselves. That's a new one.
It might sound strange at first, but Tobias reminded us that we are expressions of the divine. The solutions we seek, the wisdom we crave, it's already within us.
So it's about recognizing and honoring that inner divinity.
Precisely. And get this, he even suggested that technology is a reflection of our expanding consciousness.
Okay, now you have to explain that one. How is technology connected to our consciousness?
He said that as we evolve spiritually, as we tap into higher levels of awareness, we create new technologies that mirror that expanded understanding.
So our gadgets, our devices, they're not just tools, they're a reflection of our inner world.
In a way, yeah. He was saying that our outer world is constantly trying to catch up to our inner world.
Now that's something to think about. But it makes me wonder, If we're on the verge of such a profound shift in consciousness, why does the world still seem so, well, messy? There's still so much conflict, so much suffering. Did Tobias ever address that?
He did. He didn't shy away from the challenges. He acknowledged that as we move through this time of transition, there's bound to be some upheaval, both personally and globally.
Like growing pains.
Exactly. He said it's like we're shedding an old skin. And that process can be uncomfortable. It can even be painful.
So what are we supposed to do? How do we stay grounded when everything feels chaotic?
He stressed the importance of staying present, of finding that place of stillness within no matter what's happening around us.
So it's about finding our inner sanctuary amidst the storm.
Exactly. And he reminded us that we're not alone on this journey. We have each other, and we have a whole team of spiritual support on our side, guiding us every step of the way.
Like guardian angels, spirit guides, that sort of thing.
Exactly. He said we're all connected to this vast network of light workers, people all over the world who are dedicated to raising the vibration of the planet.
So it's not just about individual enlightenment. It's about a collective awakening.
Precisely. He was very clear that we're all in this together. We're all part of something much bigger than ourselves, and that each of us has a unique role to play in this grand unfolding.
So how do we find our role? Is there like a cosmic job description we can look up?
He said the answers are already within us. He encouraged us to ask ourselves, what are we passionate about? What brings us joy? And how can we use our unique gifts and talents to make a difference in the world?
So it's about trusting our intuition, our inner guidance, to lead us towards our purpose.
Yes. He emphasized that there's no need to wait for permission or validation from anyone else. We are already empowered to step into our roles as creators and changemakers.
It's a powerful message, but to be honest, it's also a little daunting. What if we don't feel ready? What if we doubt ourselves?
He acknowledged that stepping into our power can be scary, but he also reassured us that we have all the support we need. He said we have a whole team of spiritual cheerleaders on our side, just waiting for us to step into our greatness.
It's like we have this whole invisible support system cheering us on every step of the way. I love that.
Me too. And it makes you wonder, if these messages are so powerful, so timely, why did they stop? Why did Tobias stop channeling through Cauldre?
That's a great question. And it leads us to one of the most poignant aspects of these teachings, something Tobias called
The passing of the torch.
passing of the torch.
Yeah.
There's definitely a sense of finality to that, like a chapter closing.
Exactly. Tobias revealed that he was getting ready to, transition out of this role as a channeled entity. He called it returning home.
Returning home. So he was moving on, but not abandoning us completely.
That's the thing. He was very clear about that. He said that by stepping aside, he was actually creating space for us, for humanity, to fully step into our own power.
So he was passing the torch, letting us carry on the work of creating this new earth he talked so much about.
Exactly. He even said something like, you are the ones riding the wave. You are the ones who will be the teachers. It was a powerful moment.
Wow. That is a lot of responsibility, though, right? I mean, no pressure or anything. Did he offer any last bits of advice? Like what to expect as we step into these new roles?
He definitely emphasized the importance of trusting ourselves, being open to the unknown, and letting our own inner light shine.
So no detailed instructions. Just trust the process. Trust ourselves.
Pretty much. He wasn't about giving us a rigid roadmap. He wanted us to find our own way, using our intuition, our inner wisdom as our guide.
That makes sense.
Ah.
It's like he was saying, okay, I've given you the tools, now go build something amazing. So even though Tobias isn't channeling in the same way anymore, his teachings, they live on through the people who resonate with them.
Absolutely. And he made it clear that his energy is always there for those who need it. But he also really encouraged a sense of independence, like, you have everything you need within you.
We are not alone.
Exactly. We have each other. We have this amazing support system.
Okay, so bringing it back to our listeners who are maybe just now discovering Tobias, what would you say is the key takeaway for them?
It's a call to action. Even though these messages were shared years ago, they're still so relevant. It's an invitation to step up, to embrace our power as creators.
We are co-creating the world around us, whether we realize it or not.
Exactly. And that's a powerful realization. It's also a huge responsibility. If we are the creators, then what kind of world are we creating? What choices are we making?
That's a great question to think about. And a perfect place to take a quick break. We'll be back in a moment to explore those questions and more.
Yeah, it really makes you think, doesn't it? Like every choice we make, every thought we have, It all adds up to something.
It's a lot to wrap your head around, but that's the beauty of Tobias's message. He wasn't trying to give us all the answers or tell us what to do. It was more about waking us up to the power we already have.
Empowering us to figure things out for ourselves, right?
Exactly. He wanted us to question everything. Challenge those old stories we tell ourselves. The ones that say we're not good enough, not ready, not worthy, whatever our particular flavor of self-doubt is.
Oh, we all have those stories, don't we? It's like they're playing on repeat sometimes. Totally. But Tobias was all about breaking free from those limitations. He wanted us to see ourselves as expressions of the divine, capable of incredible things when we align with that inner spark.
So it's not just about creating a new world out there. It's about creating a new reality within ourselves.
100%. And I think that's what makes these teachings so powerful, even all these years later. It's a timeless message.
Timeless and incredibly relevant, especially with everything going on in the world right now. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of Tobias, what would you say is the most important takeaway for our listeners?
That's a good question. I think it's the reminder that we are not alone.
We've got this.
Yes. Even though Tobias might have moved on, his energy is still out there. And beyond that, we have each other, this whole network of support, both visible and invisible.
It's like we're all in this together, right? Creating this new reality, one choice, one thought, one action at a time.
Exactly. It's about trusting our gut, embracing our creativity, and knowing that we have everything we need within us to make a difference.
To create a world that is more beautiful, more compassionate, more aligned with who we truly are.
Beautifully said. Every thought, every action, it creates a ripple effect. It's up to us to decide what kind of ripples we want to send out into the world.
What kind of world do we want to create? It's a question worth pondering. And on that note, we're going to wrap things up for today. But don't worry, the conversation doesn't have to end here. If you're curious to learn more about Tobias, you can find links to all the materials we talked about in the show notes. And until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep shining your light.
Hey there! You ready to dive into something really different?
Oh yeah, this time we are going deep.
We're going deep into this world of Shaumbra.
It's,
Think transcripts, maybe even channeled messages.
yeah.
All about flipping the script on traditional spirituality.
We're talking feeling your way to divinity.
We're talking feeling our way to divinity.
A guy named Tobias, who may or may not be sticking around.
Right, and then...
And even someone called Cryon handling something about magnetic grids.
Okay.
Buckle up, because this deep dive is all about exploring what it means to be a divine human.
Whatever that means.
And you're right to question what that even means. It's a phrase that gets thrown around a lot in these Shaumbra teachings. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's unpack this idea of feeling first then thinking that you mentioned.
Right.
It's a core concept here.
Okay.
Imagine, instead of analyzing everything with your mind, you let your feelings lead the way.
Okay, so instead of overthinking everything, we should be tapping into our emotions. That seems a little counterintuitive, to say the least.
It does.
Most spiritual practices I've come across encourage you to, detach from your emotions.
Right. But the Shaumbra suggests that our emotions are actually our most direct line to our intuition, to a deeper wisdom. It's like our feelings are a compass pointing us towards our true selves.
Okay.
One excerpt even compares it to how children experience the world.
Okay.
They haven't developed all those mental filters yet, so they're more tuned into their feelings.
So are they suggesting we should all just revert back to childhood and let our emotions run wild?
Not quite.
Okay.
It's about learning to access that childlike wonder and intuition again.
Okay.
To feel the energy of a situation rather than just analyzing it.
I see.
Imagine you're facing a difficult decision. Instead of just weighing the pros and cons, you take some time to tune into your gut feeling, to notice any subtle sensations or emotions that arise. That's what it means to feel first.
So it's like we have this internal guidance system that we've forgotten how to use.
Exactly. And the Shaumbra believe that this guidance system is connected to our divinity. They're saying that our feelings and emotions aren't something to be suppressed or controlled, but rather a source of wisdom and power.
Okay, so how does this group of self-proclaimed divine humans even come into the picture?
Well, the excerpts describe them as a group of souls who have been called to awaken to their true nature, their divinity,
right,
and to help usher in a new era on Earth.
Okay.
They believe that humanity is on the brink of a massive shift in consciousness, what they call the new energy.
New energy. What exactly does that mean? Is this like some kind of cosmic energy drink?
They describe it as a higher vibrational frequency that's gradually infusing the planet.
Okay.
Think of it like a rising tide, slowly but surely transforming everything it touches.
Hmm.
This new energy, they say, is what will ultimately awaken humanity to its true nature.
Okay, that's a lot to unpack.
It is.
So how do these Shaumbra folks plan to usher in this new energy? What are they actually doing?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
They talk about working on these crystalline grids of Gaia.
Okay.
Now stay with me here, because I know that sounds a little out there.
Okay.
Imagine the Earth wrapped in this invisible energy grid, kind of like the planet's nervous system. They believe this grid is shifting to a higher vibration and that their energy is helping to facilitate this transformation.
So they see themselves as what, like energy workers for the planet?
Exactly.
Okay.
And they're not alone in this effort.
Okay.
There's also mention of this being called Cryon the Magnetic Master.
It sounds like something straight out of a comic book, right?
It does.
Yeah.
So what's Cryon's deal?
Well, from what I gather, Cryon is working on the Earth's outer magnetic grids. Think of it like the planet's force field, while the Shaumbra are focused on the inner crystalline grids.
Interesting. It seems like there are a lot of players involved in this whole new energy shift.
There are.
And each one seems to have a specific role to play. But it all comes back to this idea of raising the vibration of the planet, of helping humanity to evolve to a higher level of consciousness.
Okay, so let's talk more about these teachings.
Okay.
Who or what is Tobias?
Well, Tobias is described as a guide or a teacher for the Shaumbra. Imagine a wise, compassionate being who's been around for eons, offering insights and guidance on this journey of awakening. He seems to be a central figure in these transcripts, providing a lot of the information about the Shaumbra's purpose and the nature of this new energy.
So Tobias is like their spiritual mentor, guiding them on this path of becoming divine humans.
Exactly.
Okay.
He's helping them to understand their own power, to release their limitations, and to step into their true potential.
And what about Saint Germain?
Yes.
The excerpts mention him too. Is he another guide?
He is.
Okay.
But Saint Germain seems to have a slightly different energy than Tobias. If Tobias is the wise, compassionate mentor, Saint Germain is more like the playful but firm coach, pushing the Shaumbra to step outside their comfort zones and to embrace their own power.
Okay.
He's all about action and transformation.
Interesting. It seems like the Shaumbra have a pretty solid support system in place for this whole new energy thing.
They do.
But what exactly?
Yeah.
What exactly are they being asked to transform? What are these limiting beliefs they keep talking about?
Well, that's something we're going to delve into deeper a little later, but it seems like these limiting beliefs are the thoughts, patterns, and assumptions that keep us trapped in old ways of being, preventing us from experiencing our true nature.
Okay. I'm definitely intrigued.
I think you will be.
So where do we go from here?
Whoa.
What else can you tell us about Tobias Saint Germain and these Shaumbra teachings?
Well, there's one more fascinating detail about Tobias that I haven't mentioned yet.
Okay.
He actually hints at his own departure from his role as a guide.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
He just up and leaves.
Wait.
Why would he do that?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's one we'll definitely explore in more detail as we continue this deep dive. But it seems like Tobias's departure is connected to the Shaumbra's own evolution.
Okay.
It's like they're graduating to a new level where they no longer need a guide to hold their hand.
Yeah, okay, so things are about to get interesting.
They are.
What else can you tease for our listeners as we wrap up part 1 of our deep dive into the world of Shaumbra?
Well, we've just scratched the surface of these Shaumbra teachings in our next installment. We'll delve deeper into Tobias's departure, explore the concept of mass consciousness, and uncover some of the specific practices that the Shaumbra are using to access this new energy.
This is definitely a lot to digest, but I'm already hooked. We'll be back soon with more on this fascinating deep dive.
You know, it's interesting how this Tobias character seems to operate.
Yeah.
It's like he's preparing them for a future where they won't need him.
Right.
Which is a very different approach from some spiritual leaders who encourage dependence.
That's a really good point. It speaks to the empowering nature of these teachings.
Yeah.
But still, it's kind of a bummer that Tobias is leaving just as things are getting interesting.
Yeah.
What does he say about why he's moving on?
Well, in one excerpt, he compares himself to Moses leading his people out of bondage.
Okay.
He says he helped the Shaumbra break free from the old ways of thinking. But now it's time for them to create their own path, their own version of the promised land.
Okay, so he's like the teacher who knows when it's time for the students to graduate.
Exactly.
Okay.
And just as Tobias steps back, Saint Germain steps up.
Okay.
He's not afraid to challenge the Shaumbra to push their buttons a bit.
Uh-huh.
He talks about how they've built crystalline prisons for themselves.
Crystalline prisons.
Yeah,
I'm picturing some kind of New Age dungeon.
not quite.
Okay.
He's speaking metaphorically, of course.
Okay.
He's saying that the Shaumbra, despite all their talk of embracing this new energy, are still trapped by their own beliefs and fears. They're holding themselves back, preventing themselves from stepping into their full power.
So how does Saint Germain propose they break free from these crystalline prisons? What's the key to unlocking the cell door?
He points to 3 major culprits that he calls forms of hypnosis:
Okay.
religion, government, and business. Now, before you think he's advocating for anarchy, hear me out.
Okay.
He's not saying these systems are inherently bad, but that they can keep us locked in rigid ways of thinking.
So it's about questioning those systems, about becoming aware of how they might be limiting our potential.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about recognizing the boxes we put ourselves in and choosing to step outside of them. And this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Saint Germain suggests that the key to unlocking our true potential lies in embracing, wait for it, our egos.
Hold on a minute. This is where I get confused.
Well,
Isn't the ego like the arch nemesis of spiritual growth?
Right.
Aren't we supposed to be transcending our egos, not embracing them?
Right. It seems counterintuitive.
It does.
But Saint Germain doesn't see the ego as inherently bad.
Okay.
He calls it the dream factory, the story maker within us.
So it's about harnessing the ego's creative power, not trying to eliminate it completely.
Precisely.
Okay.
He encourages the Shaumbra to become conscious creators, to use their imagination and, yes, even their egos to manifest the reality they want.
Okay, this is a lot to process.
It is.
So we've got these Shaumbra folks feeling their way to divinity, working with guides who come and go, and now they're supposed to befriend their egos.
Right.
It's a far cry from any spiritual path I've ever heard of.
It is different, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that's what makes these teachings so compelling.
Yeah.
They challenge us to question everything we thought we knew about spirituality, to think outside the box, or maybe even to realize there is no box.
Right.
Yeah.
There is that. So amidst all this talk of crystalline grids and ego embracing the concept of mass consciousness comes up a lot.
Right.
What exactly does that mean, and why is it such a big deal for the Shaumbra?
Good question.
Okay.
Think of mass consciousness like an energetic soup that we're all swimming in.
Okay.
It's made up of the collective beliefs, fears, and desires of humanity.
Okay.
The Shaumbra believe that many of these collective beliefs are limiting, keeping us stuck in old paradigms.
So it's not enough to just work on yourself, on your own individual growth.
Right.
You also have to contend with this larger energetic field that's influencing everyone.
Exactly.
Okay.
They talk about the need to consciously disconnect from the limiting beliefs of the masses to step out of that old energy soup and into a higher vibration.
So how do they propose doing that? Are we talking about becoming hermits and living off the grid?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It's more about becoming aware of the ways in which we're unconsciously influenced by these collective beliefs.
All right.
For example, notice how often you compare yourself to others, or how much you worry about what other people think.
Right.
Those are subtle ways in which we get caught in the web of mass consciousness.
That's really insightful. I can definitely see how those thought patterns can be limiting.
Right.
So if we're swimming in this soup of mass consciousness, how do we start to create a more empowering reality, both for ourselves and for humanity as a whole?
That's where the real work begins.
Okay.
And it seems like the Shaumbra have a few tools and techniques up their sleeve to help them navigate this energetic terrain.
Okay.
But before we dive into those, there's another important figure we need to introduce. Cthulhu.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten to Cthulhu yet.
Right.
Who is this new character on the scene?
Well, if Tobias is the wise mentor and Saint Germain is the firm but loving coach, Cthulhu is the playful trickster here to lighten the mood and remind the Shaumbra not to take themselves too seriously.
It sounds like the Shaumbra are going to need a good laugh with all this intense talk of new energy crystalline prisons and mass consciousness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Cthulhu isn't just about comic relief.
Okay.
He seems to bring a fresh perspective to the teachings, encouraging the Shaumbra to embrace their creativity and to find the joy in the journey.
Okay, so Cthulhu is like the fun uncle who shows up at family gatherings and reminds everyone to loosen up a bit.
Exactly.
Okay.
He's all about reminding the Shaumbra that this journey of awakening doesn't have to be so serious.
Okay.
It's about embracing the fullness of life, the light and the dark, the joy and the sorrow and everything in between.
Right.
But Cthulhu's arrival isn't the only shakeup in store for the Shaumbra.
Okay.
Remember that date we mentioned earlier, September 18, 2007?
Yes.
The
A
one.
big quantum leap.
Right.
Yeah.
What about it?
Well, according to the transcripts, that date came and went without any major earth-shattering events.
Oh,
No sudden global awakening, no dramatic shift into the new energy that everyone was expecting.
oh no. That must have been a huge disappointment for the Shaumbra.
Oh, it was.
They were really banking on that date being a game changer.
They were, and they weren't shy about expressing their confusion and even frustration to Tobias.
So what happened? Did they get it wrong? Was the whole thing a big cosmic joke? Well, he addressed it head on in one of the later transcripts.
Oh.
He explained that the shift into this new energy isn't a single event, but a gradual process.
Mm-hmm.
He compared it to a wave that's been building for a long time and is now starting to crest.
So it's not about one defining moment, but a subtle yet powerful shift that's unfolding over time.
Exactly.
Okay.
Tobias reminds the Shaumbra in us that real change often happens beneath the surface, in those subtle shifts in consciousness that might not make the headlines, but are no less profound.
Right.
It's like watching a seedling grow.
Right.
You don't see much happening on the surface, but beneath the soil, a profound transformation is taking place.
That's a beautiful analogy.
It is.
It makes you think about all the subtle ways in which our own consciousness might be shifting without us even realizing it.
Right.
But I have to ask, with all this talk about feeling first and embracing our intuition,
Right.
is there a danger of getting lost in subjectivity?
Yeah.
How do we know if we're actually tapping into a higher wisdom or just following our own wishful thinking?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
And it's one that the Shaumbra grapple with throughout these transcripts.
Right.
But I think it speaks to the importance of discernment, of learning to distinguish between the ego's voice and the voice of our intuition.
Okay.
And that's something we'll be exploring in more detail in our next part.
This is getting more and more intriguing.
It is.
I can't wait to dive back in and uncover more of these Shaumbra secrets.
Me neither. We'll be back soon with part 3 of our deep dive into the world of Shaumbra.
So we're back, and I'm ready to unravel more of this Shaumbra mystery.
It is a mystery, isn't it?
It is. We left off talking about the importance of discernment, how to tell the difference between our ego's voice and true intuition.
Right.
What insights did the Shaumbra offer about that?
Well, it's not like they offer a simple litmus test.
Right.
But they do emphasize the importance of grounding and self-awareness. They suggest practices like spending time in nature, connecting with their bodies through movement or dance, and simply paying attention to their breath. All things that can help quiet the mental chatter and create space for deeper listening.
So it's about creating a sense of inner stillness, a space where that subtle voice of intuition can be heard.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they also talk about the importance of checking in with their motivations.
Okay.
Is this decision or this desire coming from a place of ego gratification, or is it aligned with their deeper purpose, their soul's longing? That kind of self-reflection can be really helpful in discerning the ego's voice from the voice of intuition.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like asking yourself, what's motivating me here? Is this truly what I want, or am I just trying to impress someone or fill some kind of void?
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, remember how we talked about the September 18th date passing without any massive global shift?
Yes.
Well, there's another event the Shaumbra anticipates that's even more mind-boggling: Gaia's departure.
Wait, Gaia's leaving. As in the Earth itself is going on vacation. What are we talking about here?
It's not that the physical planet is going anywhere,
Okay.
but more like a symbolic, energetic shift.
Okay.
The Shaumbra believe that Gaia, the spirit or consciousness of Earth, has been nurturing humanity for eons, and she's ready to move on to evolve in her own way.
Okay, so it's more like a cosmic changing of the guard than a literal planet abandoning scenario.
Precisely.
Okay.
And this ties into the Shaumbra's own sense of responsibility.
Okay.
They believe they're meant to step into stewardship of the planet as Gaia moves on to other experiences.
Wow, that's a pretty big job description. Are they prepared for that kind of cosmic promotion?
Well, that's the question they're grappling with.
Yeah.
But it speaks to the whole idea of humans evolving into this role of conscious creators actively participating in the evolution of the planet.
So it's not just about personal transformation, but about stepping into a larger role as caretakers of the Earth.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, we've talked about how these Shaumbra are supposed to be releasing mass consciousness.
Right.
What exactly are they trying to create instead?
Right.
Are they just swimming against the current, or do they have a vision for a new way of being?
Right.
Good question. And it seems like their vision is less about imposing a specific structure and more about embracing a way of being.
Okay.
They talk about synchronistic life, where life flows effortlessly, where synchronicities abound, and where they're supported by the universe in every way.
That sounds idyllic. But is it realistic? I mean, can we really just manifest a life of ease and flow?
Well, it's not about sitting back and waiting for miracles to happen. The Shaumbra believe that this state of synchronicity arises from a deep trust in the universe, a willingness to surrender control, and an alignment with their soul's purpose.
Okay.
They talk about becoming conscious creators, actively shaping their reality through their thoughts, beliefs, and actions.
Okay, so it's a co-creative process, a dance between our own intentions and the flow of the universe.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this is where the importance of releasing those limiting beliefs comes back into play. The Shaumbra believe that those limiting beliefs create blockages, preventing us from fully tapping into that flow of abundance and synchronicity.
That makes sense. It's like trying to drive a car with the parking brake on.
Right.
You might be able to move forward, but it's going to be a lot harder and less enjoyable.
Exactly. And just like we might need to call on a mechanic to help release a stuck parking brake, the Shaumbra talk about tools and practices that can help us to release those energetic blockages.
Okay.
For example, remember how we talked about the power of the breath earlier?
Yes. It seemed like more than just deep breathing.
Right. The Shaumbra talk about using the breath in very intentional ways to release old energy, to calm the mind, and to connect with their inner guidance.
Okay.
They describe it as a bridge between the physical and the spiritual, a way to access higher states of consciousness.
Interesting. It makes you realize how much power we have at our fingertips, literally with every breath we take.
Right.
Are there any other tools or practices that the Shaumbra use?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They also talk about the power of sound in music.
Okay.
Tobias describes music as a universal language that can shift energy, create harmony, and even facilitate healing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just about listening to music passively.
Okay.
They emphasize chanting, toning, and even creating their own music as ways to align with higher vibrations.
So it's about becoming active participants in the creative process, using sound and music as tools for transformation.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it makes you wonder how we might be able to incorporate these practices, conscious breathing, working with sound, into our own lives.
Right. It's definitely given me a lot to think about. So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from feeling our way to divinity, to embracing our egos, to becoming stewards of the planet.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Oh, what stands out to you as the most significant takeaway from these Shaumbra teachings?
That's a great question. I think the most powerful message that emerges is the idea that we are not passive bystanders in the unfolding of our lives or the evolution of the planet. We are active participants, co-creators with the universe, and we have the power to shape our reality through our thoughts, beliefs, and actions.
It's a very empowering message, isn't it? It reminds me of that quote from Gandhi, "Be the change you want to see in the world."
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the Shaumbra teachings offer a roadmap for how to do just that, how to tap into our own inner wisdom, to release the limiting beliefs that hold us back, and to step into our full power as conscious creators.
It's a journey that requires courage, commitment, and a willingness to question everything we thought we knew.
It is.
But as these teachings suggest, it's a journey that ultimately leads us back to ourselves, to our true nature as divine humans.
Beautifully said.
Right.
And perhaps that's the greatest gift that the Shaumbra offer us, a reminder of our own inherent divinity, our interconnectedness with all that is, and the infinite possibilities that await us when we dare to dream a new world into being.
That's a powerful note to end on. We've taken a deep dive into the world of Shaumbra, exploring their unique perspective on spirituality, consciousness, and what it means to be human. It's up to each of us now to take what resonates and integrate it into our own lives, our own journeys of awakening. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving into something a little different, the Clarity series.
Okay.
It's, well, think spiritual lectures, but with a twist.
Interesting. A twist, you say?
Yeah, because the speaker, a being called Tobias, claims to be channeling through a human messenger.
Wow, channeling. That's something you don't hear every day.
Right. And get this, Tobias is on his way out, making way for another entity named Adamus Saint Germain.
Hold on. So we've got entities, channeling, and a cosmic changing of the guard.
Basically. Buckle up, because this deep dive is going to be a wild ride.
You've given me a lot to work with here. What's really interesting is how much this Tobias emphasizes personal experience. It's not about blind faith or dogma.
So what, like trusting your gut, going with your intuition, that sort of thing?
Exactly. He even tells a story about a young girl, Emma, who feels fear when she prays. It's like he's highlighting that disconnect some people feel with organized religion.
Yeah, that longing for something more personal, more individual.
Ex
Okay, but before we get too far ahead, who is Tobias? Like, what's his deal?
He describes himself as an entity, not a human, but communicating through a human.
Okay, so not just some guy standing on a soapbox.
Right. And his personality really comes through in these lectures. Very approachable, friendly even. He cracks jokes sometimes.
So no booming pronouncements from on high?
Not really, no. And remember, he's on his way out, so to speak. Adamus Saint Germain is waiting in the wings.
A real cosmic changing of the guard. Why is Tobias even here? What's his mission?
He's here to guide a group of spiritual seekers. They're called Shaumbra.
Shaumbra. Okay, now that sounds intriguing. Who are they? Some kind of secret society.
He calls them a family. They're on a similar spiritual path, apparently. Very sensitive, very aware. He even says they're setting an example for others, even if they don't realize it.
Wow, the spiritual trailblazers.
Right. He stresses how important they are, especially with this new energy he talks about.
New energy. Okay, we have to unpack that. But first, you mentioned some other terms. Clarity, Nost, standard technology.
No compromise. Yes, they're all connected.
Let's start with clarity. It sounds pretty straightforward, but I'm guessing there's more to it.
Oh, absolutely. Tobias describes it as understanding how we feed our reality, our thoughts, our beliefs, our energy. He even says things like depression can be a form of spiritual food.
Hold on, spiritual food. You're going to have to explain that one.
He's not saying it's good, obviously, but he's encouraging us to look at what needs it might be meeting. Why are we holding on to it?
So it's about understanding the underlying energy dynamics.
Yes. Even things like watching TV, he says. It's a way we feed ourselves energy.
I mean, I know I've gotten sucked into a good movie and lost track of time.
Exactly. He's saying we should be mindful about what we feed our minds and spirits, just like we do our bodies.
Okay, so if clarity is about what we're feeding ourselves, what about Nost? That sounds intense.
It does, doesn't it? But he describes it as this innate creative knowingness that exists in all humans.
Hold on, so we all have this knowingness inside of us.
That's what he's suggesting. And he says it's incredibly powerful, like a tool for manifestation, for solving problems.
So how do we tap into it? Meditation. Special breathing techniques.
That's the thing. He says it operates beyond our minds.
So the more we try to grasp it, the more it slips away?
It seems that way, yes. And that leads into standard technology, which I know sounds odd in this context.
Standard technology.
Yeah, a little bit. But Tobias uses it to describe consciously choosing a desired state of being, and then instead of struggling to make it happen, just allowing it to radiate outward.
Okay, that sounds pretty abstract. Got an example?
Well, he talks about it like a single healthy cell influencing the whole body just by being its healthy self. It doesn't have to try.
So it's about shifting our focus from what we lack to what we want to experience.
Yes, and that's where that new energy he talks about comes in.
Okay, new energy. What is that? Is this like a solar flare, some cosmic surge?
He describes it as this powerful force transforming consciousness and reality. He says it requires a different way of being.
Different how?
Simpler. More about letting go of struggle, about embracing change. It's like this new energy makes it easier to manifest our desires, but we need to learn how to work with it.
That's a great way to put it, actually. He stresses the importance of no compromise.
No compromise. You mean like setting healthy boundaries? Not letting people walk all over us?
That's part of it, but Tobias takes it further. He's talking about aligning with our core values, not dimming our light just to please others.
So owning who we are, even if it makes us different.
Exactly. And he tells this great story about Klaus, the toy maker.
Okay, Klaus the toy maker, what's his story?
He's this master craftsman who pours his heart into making these beautiful dolls, but he's so focused on the art, he forgets about the business side of things.
Oh no, he doesn't end up broke and destitute, does he?
Don't worry, he doesn't. Tobias uses this story to show how important it is to balance passion with practicality.
Right, you need to pay the bills. Exactly. Now, we've got to touch on these thought-provoking questions you pulled out. They're really something. For example, what if the traditional concept of reincarnation is incomplete?
Yeah, that one stopped me in my tracks. What does he mean by that?
This is where things get really interesting. He suggests that instead of endlessly going through lifetimes, we're experiencing the culmination of all of them right now.
So it's like our past, present, and future are all happening at the same time.
It's a mind bender, right?
It really is.
Yeah.
And he's not done there. He also asks, what if you have unlimited potentials within you, just waiting to be unleashed?
He's really challenging us to rethink everything, isn't he?
He is. And then there's, What if you're already a new energy artist, even if you don't realize it?
That was my favorite.
Okay, new energy artist. What on earth does that mean?
He's saying everyone has this innate creative power. It's not about being a painter or a musician. It's about realizing we're all contributing to reality with our thoughts and our actions.
So we're all artists, co-creating our experience.
Yeah. Exactly. And he even asks, could stepping into your authentic self be the key to unlocking abundance and joy?
There's that word again, authenticity.
Hmm.
It seems important to him.
It's a recurring theme for sure. And it makes sense. He's saying true fulfillment comes from being true to ourselves, not chasing external validation.
Living a life that feels aligned with who we are at our core.
Exactly. Which, let's be honest, can be terrifying.
No kidding. But, I mean, isn't that what we all really want?
I think so. And thankfully, it sounds like we don't have to do it alone.
Oh, how so?
He talks about these beings, angelic beings, who are supporting us.
So we have a cosmic cheering section.
Something like that. But he's also clear that we're the ones calling the shots. We have to take responsibility for our choices.
So it's not a free pass. We can't just sit back and wait for miracles.
No, but we're not alone in figuring it out either. It's a collaborative effort.
This is a lot to digest. It's exciting, but also a little overwhelming.
Right. But isn't that the beauty of it? It's a journey.
With a few cosmic plot twists along the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we're back, still swimming through the Clarity series. And from the looks of it, the waters are about to get even deeper.
You could say that. Tobias and Adamus, they really don't shy away from the thought-provoking stuff.
Yeah, like that whole thing about energy independence. Tobias talks about disconnecting from the field. What is the field exactly? Is that like some cosmic Wi-Fi?
Well, he describes it as a collective energy field. We're all plugged into it. It sustains us, but it can also hold us back.
So it gives us a sense of connection, but also keeps us playing small.
Exactly. Think of it like a radio wave. We tune into it. It gives us information, energy, a sense of belonging. But Tobias argues it locks us into a certain frequency, limits our potential.
It's time to change the station, tune into something new.
Right. Tobias says Shaumbra need to become energetically independent, create their own reality, instead of just accepting the default setting.
But hold on, why would we want to disconnect from that? Doesn't it provide community a sense of belonging?
It does, but he says it also keeps us stuck in old patterns limitations. True freedom, he suggests, comes from tapping into our own internal energy source, not relying on external validation.
So like we've been plugged into the matrix this whole time.
Now you're getting it. And that connects directly to his emphasis on personal responsibility. It comes up a lot with both Tobias and Adamus.
So no more blaming others, playing the victim.
None of that. It's about owning our power as creators. What we think, what we believe, how we act, it all shapes our reality.
That's a lot of responsibility, though.
True, but think about it. Tobias would say we're already creating our reality whether we're conscious of it or not. The key is to wake up, make conscious choices from a place of power, not from a place of reactivity.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we actually do that? It's not always easy to see those limiting beliefs, those old patterns that trip us up.
No, it's not. And that's where some of the, shall we say, more unusual concepts come in. Remember that sexual energy virus we mentioned earlier?
Yeah, that one definitely piqued my curiosity. A little ominous, don't you think?
It does sound a bit intense, I'll grant you that. But what Tobias is getting at is this. Sexual energy, this powerful life force, he believes it's been distorted, misused throughout history.
So it's not about sex being bad or wrong, but about how it's been manipulated and controlled, leading to unhealthy dynamics, a disconnect from who we truly are.
That's exactly it. And it circles back to no compromise. Reclaiming our sexual energy, honoring it, integrating it authentically, that's the key.
That makes a lot more sense. Now, what about this shadow biology business? That one's got me stumped.
It is a bit out there, isn't it? He uses such vivid imagery. He's talking about a hidden aspect of our biology, a source of incredible healing, regeneration, something most of us haven't tapped into yet.
Hold on, are you saying we have this, like, untapped healing superpower inside us?
That's one way to put it. He even suggests it could heal supposedly incurable diseases.
All right, now I'm really listening. How do we access it, this shadow biology?
He's not big on giving step-by-step instructions, but he does emphasize the importance of releasing those old patterns and beliefs. He's all about listening to the wisdom of our bodies, not trying to force them.
Less forcing, more flowing.
Exactly. Our bodies are allies in this healing journey, not something to be controlled or conquered.
So much of what we talk about is that mind-body connection, but this takes it to a whole new level.
Totally. And speaking of connections, he also digs into this idea of destiny seeds. Makes you think about how our past experiences, even from other lifetimes, might be shaping our present.
Destiny seeds. Okay, now I'm really lost. Is this like carrying around invisible baggage from past lives?
Kind of. Think of them as energetic imprints. They can be positive or negative, influencing our reality in the here and now.
So we could be carrying seeds of joy and seeds of fear all at the same time.
That's the idea. But here's the good news. Tobias says we have a choice. We can choose which seeds we nurture, which ones we let wither.
So it's not about being a victim to our past, but realizing we have the power to create a different future.
Exactly. And this is where the new energy comes in. He believes it's helping us break free from those old limiting patterns, giving us a cosmic tailwind, if you will.
So we're not just stuck with the hand we've been dealt.
Nope. But we have to choose to step onto that new path. Let go of the old stories, you know?
Embrace the unknown, rewrite the script.
Exactly. Now there's one more piece to this puzzle. The new Earth.
Okay, the new Earth. Is that a physical place? Are we all going to be beamed up to a new planet someday?
Not quite. I think of it more like a realm of pure potential. All the experiences, all the wisdom humanity has ever accumulated, it's all there in this new Earth.
So it's more like a spiritual dimension, a higher vibration of reality.
You're getting warmer. He describes it as a place where old systems crumble and new possibilities emerge.
A cosmic reset button. A chance to start fresh, build something better.
That's a great way to put it. And Tobias seems to think that Shaumbra, with their sensitivity, their openness to change, they're the ones who can anchor this new Earth energy here on the planet.
So like a spiritual advance team, paving the way.
I like it. But it's not about exclusivity. This new energy, this new Earth, it's open to anyone who chooses to embrace it.
It's like we're all invited to this epic party, but we have to choose to show up. Right?
Yeah.
Choose love, choose joy, choose to step into our full potential.
Love that analogy. And it's not about being good enough to get in. It's about aligning with that frequency, that vibration of the new Earth.
It's not about getting there. It's about realizing we're already here. We just need to adjust our perception.
Now you're talking! Speaking of shifting perceptions, we can't forget about Adamus Saint Germain. The man is a walking, talking disruption.
Oh, yeah, he definitely shakes things up. Tobias is more like a gentle guide, but Adamus, he's all about that tough love.
Totally. Remember those past lives he claims to have lived? It's like he can see right through our excuses, our attempts to stay small, but he only does it because he knows we're capable of so much more.
A cosmic mentor with a wicked sense of humor.
That's one way to put it. And he doesn't shy away from controversy. He challenges our assumptions about everything. Spirituality, sexuality, you name it.
Definitely not your typical spiritual guru.
Not even close. And that's what makes this Clarity series so interesting. It's this wild mix of esoteric wisdom, unexpected perspectives, and you can't forget the humor.
It's definitely not your grandma's self-help book, that's for sure.
No kidding.
But, jokes aside, there's a real depth to their message, wouldn't you say?
100%. Both Tobias and Adamus, they genuinely believe in humanity's potential to evolve, to create a better world. And they see Shaumbra as playing a key role in that transformation.
Like pioneers, venturing into uncharted territory, reporting back for the rest of us.
Exactly. Exploring what it means to be human in this new energy. And the best part, they're inviting all of us to join them on the adventure.
An adventure that involves embracing our true selves, taking responsibility for our lives, and maybe having a little fun along the way.
Now you're speaking my language. Let's take a break, digest all of this. When we come back, we'll see how we can actually put these concepts into practice, because that's where the real magic happens, right?
So we've journeyed through the Clarity series, met Tobias and Adamus, unpacked all those mind-bending concepts.
Clarity, Nost, standard technology. We've covered a lot of ground.
And I'll admit, some of it sounded a little, well, out there at first. But there's a real depth here, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And now it's time to bring it all home. Because the real magic happens when we take these ideas and apply them to our own lives.
Exactly. Someone's listening to this right now thinking, okay, this is all fascinating, but how do I actually use this in my everyday life? So where do we even begin?
You know, I think it comes back to that core idea, conscious creation. Tobias talks about how we feed our reality, our thoughts, our beliefs, our actions. They all matter.
So being mindful of what we're putting out there, both internally and externally.
Precisely. Paying attention to that inner dialogue. Are we focusing on the negative, or are we choosing thoughts that align with what we want to create?
So it's not about pretending everything's perfect. It's more about how we choose to react to those curveballs life throws our way.
Exactly. We have a choice. We can get stuck in negativity, Or we can choose to see the opportunity for growth, for learning.
Reframing those challenges, finding the silver lining, so to speak.
You got it. And that ties into standard technology, right? Instead of trying to force external change, what if we became the blueprint, the living embodiment of the reality we want to experience?
Okay, sounds good on paper, but how do we actually do that? How do we make that shift from struggling to surrendering, forcing to allowing?
Honestly, it starts with clarity. What do we really want deep down? Not what we're supposed to want, but what lights us up inside.
Connecting with our passions, our purpose. That can be scary, can't it? Especially when the world tells us to play it safe.
Absolutely. It takes courage to defy those expectations, to embrace what makes us unique. But that's where the real magic happens.
That's where that no compromise idea comes in, right? Having the guts to be ourselves, even when it's uncomfortable.
Yes. And that connects to the whole new energy shift Tobias and Adamus talk about. This energy supports authenticity, embracing our wholeness, even the messy parts.
Because those imperfections, those quirks, they're what make us, us.
Exactly. And when we embrace all of it without judgment, that's when we unlock true freedom, true creativity.
It's like giving ourselves permission to be fully human.
And that brings us to another practical tool, our Nost, that innate wisdom that's already inside of us.
Okay, so how do we actually tap into that, make it tangible, something we can use?
Tobias says it's not a purely mental thing. It's about surrendering control, trusting that gut feeling, that inner whisper, even when it doesn't make sense logically.
So quieting the mind, that inner critic, and listening to something deeper.
You got it. That's where the real guidance is.
And sometimes that guidance leads us to unexpected places. Like facing those shadows we'd rather keep hidden.
Absolutely. But that's where the real transformation lies. Facing those shadow aspects, not with judgment, but with compassion.
It's about clearing out the old to make room for the new.
Beautifully said. And honestly, isn't that what this Clarity series is all about? Clearing away the clutter, the limiting beliefs, the outdated stories so we can step into our truth.
Recognizing that we're not broken, but powerful creators, capable of shaping our own reality.
Exactly. It's a powerful message of hope and possibility.
Incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
It's humbling and exhilarating at the same time.
Yeah.
To realize we have that kind of power within us.
It truly is. And it all starts with a choice to wake up, to own our power, and to step into our full potential.
A choice to become the artists of our own lives. I think Tobias and Adamus would agree that's a masterpiece worth creating. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into the Clarity series. What resonated with you most? What new questions are swirling around in your mind? This is just the beginning of the exploration, and we can't wait to hear your thoughts. Keep questioning, keep diving deep, and thanks for joining us. All right, so you've been digging into these Tobias excerpts.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, there's a lot to unpack.
There is.
But that's why we're here, right?
Mm-hmm.
To really dive deep into these ideas about consciousness, personal growth, this whole new energy thing that Tobias keeps talking about.
And it's not just about understanding the concepts intellectually. It's about feeling our way into a different experience.
100%. So let's jump right in. One thing that really stood out to me was this idea of little you.
Oh, yeah.
Tobias keeps coming back to this, almost like it's public enemy number one.
Was.
He even says, you're going to get really irritated when you realize how much trouble and stress little you has been getting all of you into.
Yeah.
So who is this little you that's causing so much chaos?
Well, I love how he gives it a name, because we all know that voice, right?
Right.
It's that voice of fear, that voice of limitation.
Oh, totally.
It's the ego, but it's personalized. You can almost picture it like a little gremlin on your shoulder.
Whispering doubts in your ear.
Okay, so we've got this little gremlin, this little you. Who is the you that it's messing with?
Well, the you that Tobias is talking about, that's the real deal.
Okay.
That's your soul.
Okay.
That's the expansive, multifaceted, unlimited you. It's pure energy, pure potential, not bound by, the limitations of the physical world.
So it's almost like little you is this kind of a limited version, a filtered version.
Exactly. It's
like looking through a tiny peephole.
Yeah, it's like you're trying to see the whole universe through a tiny little peephole when really you are the universe.
Wow. Okay. I like that. And this makes me think about, those moments when we do feel that expansiveness, right? Like for me, when I'm writing and I kind of lose track of time.
Yes.
Is that kind of a glimpse of what it means to be operating from that you, free from little you's doubts?
Exactly. Exactly. And what's the energy like in those realms?
Well, it's effortless.
Yeah.
And it's joyful. It's like, why can't I access this all the time? Yes, yes. And that's the energy signature, I think, of new energy,
Okay.
operating from that more expensive place.
All right, so let's talk about this new energy because it's really central to everything in these Tobias excerpts.
Yes, it is.
But what does he actually mean by that? Because, I mean, isn't all energy dot...
Well, energy.
Right, right. It's not like your coffee's suddenly going to be new energy coffee.
Right.
But what if, instead of electricity flowing through wires, it was more like pure creative potential,
Okay.
awareness without limits?
So less about like a literal energy source and more about a shift in
Consciousness.
how we're experiencing the world.
Exactly. Like our consciousness itself is evolving to handle a higher frequency.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get a feel for this. But how do we actually tap into this new energy? How do we tell little you to take a break?
Well, Tobias talks about this really intriguing concept. He calls it the Shaumbra Service Center. Yes, the Shaumbra Service Center. It sounds amazing. He describes it as this space where you can kind of escape the demands of being human, right?
Yes.
No to-do lists, no hunger, just pure being.
It's like a retreat for the soul.
Yes. And he even suggests that spending time in this Shaumbra Service Center can actually, like, shift years, even lifetimes, off your journey.
Yeah, yeah. It's profound the way he talks about it.
Okay, so help me understand this. Is this a real place?
Well, he describes it in a way that makes you want to book a flight, right?
Yeah, right.
But I think what he's really pointing to is an internal state.
Okay.
It's accessible through deep inner work, meditation, mindfulness, any practice that quiets that little you chatter.
So it's less about, like, physically going somewhere and more about creating that space within.
Yes. It's like instead of getting a massage, you're shedding old patterns and limitations.
It's like a soul spa.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a beautiful way to think about it. And you know what's interesting is that Tobias connects this directly to dealing with challenging emotions.
Okay.
He's very clear about this. We need to get over our demons.
Yeah, that's a phrase that really stood out to me. He doesn't shy away from the big stuff. What does he mean by demons, and how do they fit into this whole new energy picture?
Well, it's easy to think of demons as these external forces, right?
Like something outside of us.
But Tobias challenges us to see them as our own creations.
Oh, interesting.
Those shadows within us, the fears, the limiting beliefs, that's the demon territory.
Okay.
And getting over them isn't about, banishing them or pretending they don't exist.
Right.
It's about integration.
So less of an exorcism and more of a merger.
Exactly, exactly. And, imagine how much energy it takes to deny or suppress those parts of ourselves.
Oh, yeah. It's exhausting.
Right,
Yeah.
but integrating them, that's reclaiming your power. That's stepping more fully into that new energy.
Wow. Okay. That's a powerful way to think about it.
Yeah.
And speaking of challenging our usual ways of thinking, Tobias has this whole thing about Lucifer being a bringer of new consciousness.
Yeah.
Now, I've got to admit, this one threw me for a loop. Should we all be, like, lighting candles for Lucifer now?
Almost.
Probably not necessary. But I think it's more about understanding the intention behind that statement.
Okay.
Tobias is pushing us to question everything, especially the dogma, the things we've been taught to believe without question.
So it's less about worshiping the devil and more about just embracing critical thinking in our spiritual exploration.
Exactly. Exactly. He's not giving us the answers.
Yeah.
He's giving us the questions. He's saying, don't just take my word for it. Explore for yourself.
Okay, I like that. He's definitely not afraid to stir the pot a little bit.
Not at all.
And speaking of stirring the pot, he also drops this bombshell about September 18th, 2007, being this huge turning point for humanity. He calls it the quantum leap.
So what happened on that date? Did we all collectively level up without realizing it?
It's like a new potential cracked open that day, and we're still feeling the ripples,
Yeah.
He doesn't say exactly what shifted, but he implies that looking back, we'll recognize it as this major turning point in our evolution.
Okay, so it's like this big cosmic mystery that we're still unraveling.
Exactly, yeah. And it's interesting to think, your first podcast launched just a couple of years after this supposed quantum leap. Maybe it played a part in your own journey, leading you to explore these concepts.
Whoa. That's an interesting thought. Maybe this new energy gave me a little nudge.
Oh.
Like, hey, time to start talking about consciousness on a global scale.
There you go.
I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, but back to this quantum leap. if we're all swimming in this new energy now, how do we navigate it? Tobias mentions these 10 commitments from Spirit. Are those like the cosmic rule book for this new reality?
They're like guidelines, but not in a like, thou shalt not kind of way.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
For example, he reframes, thou shalt not commit adultery.
Okay.
Not as a rule about sex, but a commitment to being true to yourself above all else.
Oh, wow.
It's like, don't cheat on your soul.
Wow. Okay, that is a very different way of looking at it.
Right.
So it's more about like personal integrity alignment than following a set of rigid rules.
Exactly, exactly. It's about listening to that inner compass that little you, tries so hard to silence.
And speaking of listening, Tobias is also really big on this idea of embracing our feelings, even the messy ones.
Yes.
So why is that so important? Shouldn't we be striving for like peace and positivity all the time? Why lean into the difficult stuff?
Because, and I think this is key to Tobias's message, those feelings, they hold so much wisdom. They're not to be feared or suppressed. They're meant to be understood.
Okay.
He even suggests that they're the key to unlocking deeper self-awareness and ultimately true liberation.
So feelings are like messengers, not monsters under the bed.
Exactly.
But how do we actually listen to them without, getting completely overwhelmed?
Well, that's where the I am presence comes in, something that Tobias talks about a lot.
Right, right. That sense of an unchanging eternal essence within us. How does that help us with, like, the ups and downs of our emotions?
Imagine this. You're in a boat in the middle of a storm, waves crashing, wind howling.
Okay.
But deep beneath the surface, there's this stillness. That's the I am. It's the part of you that can observe the storm without being swept away by it.
So it's not about becoming emotionless. It's about finding that still point within that allows us to actually experience our emotions without being, like, completely taken over by them.
Exactly. And you know what? Tobias says that practices like breathwork, meditation, they can help us tap into that I am presence.
So it's like building a strong foundation that no matter what life throws our way.
You've got that inner stability.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, but how does all of this tie back to new energy?
Because, and this is where it gets really fascinating.
Ooh, I love when it gets fascinating. Tell me more.
Tobias makes this really interesting connection between consciousness and population growth.
Population growth. Okay, now I'm really curious. How are those two things related?
He talks about a consciousness measurement that was taken at the time of Yeshua about 2,000 years ago, and again in more recent times.
You okay?
And he suggests that as the human population grows, so too does the potential for collective consciousness.
So more people on the planet equals a more powerful collective consciousness.
That's what he suggests, yeah.
Okay. That's a bold claim. But how do you even measure something like consciousness? It seems so intangible.
He doesn't give us an exact formula or anything.
Right.
But I think what he's getting at is this idea that each individual consciousness contributes to a larger field of awareness. Like each of us is a drop of water, and together we create a vast ocean of consciousness.
So more drops in the ocean, the bigger the ocean gets, the more powerful the collective consciousness becomes. Okay.
Exactly.
I mean, that makes sense on a certain level.
Yeah.
But are we saying that, like, humanity just keeps growing and growing, and that automatically equals a higher level of consciousness?
Yeah.
Because that doesn't seem to track with what we see happening in the world.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? And maybe that's part of the challenge we're facing right now. Tobias seems to be suggesting that this rapid population growth we're experiencing, it necessitates a corresponding acceleration in our conscious evolution.
So it's like humanity's going through this massive growth spurt, but we haven't quite figured out how to handle this influx of, like, new energy.
Exactly. And that's where I think his teachings become really relevant. It's like, okay, if that's true, then how do we individually and collectively rise to meet that challenge?
Wow. Okay, so it's not just about our personal journeys then. It's about our role in this much bigger story, this evolution of consciousness on a planetary scale.
That's what it sounds like, yeah.
This is a lot to process, but I have a feeling we're just scratching the surface here.
We are.
All right, listeners, grab your favorite beverage, find a comfy spot, and stay tuned, because we're diving even deeper into the world of Tobias.
You know, one thing that really struck me about all of this is that Tobias isn't saying we have to become these, like, perfect, enlightened beings
Right.
who just float around in a constant state of bliss.
Yeah.
It's more like this new energy is meant to be lived, like in the real world, with all its messiness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's very practical in that sense. It's about bringing that spiritual awareness into everything we do.
Yes. Our relationships, our work, even our challenges.
Yes.
It's like he's saying, don't just meditate on a mountaintop, bring that mountaintop energy to your Monday morning meeting.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly.
Okay, but how does that actually work? If we're trying to live this new energy in our everyday lives, what kind of shifts might we notice?
Well, one thing he talks about is an increase in synchronicities.
Oh, yeah.
Those moments where the universe seems to be winking at you.
Like you're speaking my language.
Right. The right people or opportunities show up at just the right time.
I love those moments. It's like finding a $20 bill on the sidewalk, but on a soul level.
Exactly. And it's not just about those lucky breaks.
Okay.
He also suggests that as we embody this new energy, we start to attract more like-minded souls into our lives.
Right. He talks about this tribe of Shaumbra, souls who are drawn to his teachings,
Yes.
committed to this journey of awakening.
And he emphasizes that those connections, they're not just a nice bonus. They're essential for navigating this shift.
We need each other.
We do, to support each other, to share our experiences, to amplify our collective impact.
It's like that saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yes.
We need that reminder sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially when things get tough.
Absolutely. And, as we come together, as we support and inspire each other,
Yeah?
Tobias suggests that creates a ripple effect,
Okay.
accelerating the shift in consciousness for all of humanity.
So it's not just about our own awakening then. It's about creating a more awakened world.
Exactly. And he's very clear about this. There's no one right way to be a new energy human.
Okay.
It's not about fitting into some predetermined mold. It's about embracing our own unique expression, our quirks, our passions.
So we're all like threads in this grand tapestry of consciousness.
I love that.
Each one adding its own little bit of color.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's a tapestry that's constantly evolving, always expanding. There's no end goal, no final destination.
Okay. But that brings up a question for me. If there's no set path, no right or wrong way to do this, how do we know if we're on the right track?
That's where trust comes in. Trust in ourselves.
Yep.
Trust in our intuition.
Okay.
Trust in the wisdom of our soul. Tobias says we're never truly lost, even when it feels that way.
So it's about learning to listen to that inner voice, that whisper of guidance, even when it's hard to hear.
Yes. And, to create space for that inner guidance to emerge.
Yeah.
Practices like meditation, spending time in nature, anything that helps us quiet the mind and connect with that deeper part of ourselves.
It's like we're tuning our internal radio to a different frequency.
Exactly.
So we can receive those transmissions that are always there.
And as we become more attuned to that frequency, we start to see the synchronicities. We attract the right people and opportunities.
We start to feel that sense of flow.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that. But, let's be real. This new energy dance, it's not always easy, right?
Right.
There are going to be missteps. There are going to be moments of doubt.
Absolutely.
That's when we stumble and fall.
It's part of the journey. And you know what? Tobias encourages us to approach it all with compassion for ourselves and for others who are also on this path.
So it's not about perfection.
No.
It's about progress, about embracing the messy, imperfect journey with all its twists and turns.
Exactly. And remembering, as he often reminds us, that we don't have to do it alone. We have our own inner wisdom to guide us, the support of other Shaumbra, and most importantly, the unwavering love and support of our own soul, guiding us every step of the way.
Speaking of support, Tobias also has some interesting things to say about relationships in the context of new energy. Should we all be ditching our partners and running off to find our soulmates?
Well, not necessarily.
Yeah.
But he does challenge us to examine our relationships through a new lens.
Okay.
To ask ourselves, are they truly aligned with our soul's purpose? Are they supporting our growth in this new energy?
So it's not about finding the perfect person, but about creating more conscious relationships.
Exactly.
Whether it's with a partner, a friend, a family member.
Yes, yes.
It's like we're shedding those old patterns and beliefs about what relationships should look like.
Yeah.
And allowing them to become a reflection of our own inner transformation.
Precisely. And, he says that this process can be challenging.
I'll bet.
But it's ultimately about learning to relate to ourselves and others from a place of love, authenticity, and respect.
So it's about doing our own inner work first.
Yes.
Healing our own wounds. And then approaching our relationships from a place of wholeness, not neediness.
Exactly. And as we do this, he suggests that we open ourselves up to experiencing a level of love and connection that is just beyond anything we can imagine.
It sounds like this new energy is about so much more than just personal growth.
It is.
It has the potential to transform our relationships, our communities, the world around us.
Absolutely. And as we continue to explore his teachings, we'll dive even deeper into the practical applications of this new energy.
Okay.
In areas like finances, health, even our understanding of death and dying. It's about embracing a whole new way of being in the world, one that is aligned with our soul's purpose and fueled by the infinite possibilities of this new energy.
This is already a lot to unpack, and it sounds like we're just getting started. Listeners, get ready to dive even deeper as we explore the practical magic of new energy. All right, so we've talked about little you, this new energy, even those commitments from spirit, but how do we actually live this? Like, what does it look like to bring new energy into our everyday lives?
You know, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And I think Tobias would say there's no one right answer.
Okay, so it's not like a recipe we can follow.
Right. It's not a set of rules. It's more like becoming a channel.
A channel for what?
For a different way of being.
Okay, I like that. But how do we do that? How do we go from talking about new energy to actually embodying it?
Yeah, it starts with surrender.
Surrender, like giving up.
Not giving up, but letting go. Releasing that need to control everything.
Okay, so less overthinking, more trusting.
Exactly. Trusting that there's a bigger plan unfolding, even when we can't see the whole picture.
So it's a balance then, right?
Yeah.
Trusting our intuition, but also taking action when we feel called to.
Yes. It's like learning a new dance. You might stumble at first, but eventually...
You find your rhythm.
Exactly. And the more we practice this dance, the more tuned in we become to the subtle energies at play.
We start to see those synchronicities popping up everywhere.
Yes, those little winks from the universe.
Like it's saying, you got this, keep going.
And those synchronicities, they're not just random events. They're often signposts, guiding us toward our soul's purpose.
Toward what really lights us up.
Exactly.
And I think this is where abundance comes in, right? Because Tobias talks a lot about abundance in the context of new energy. And it's not just about money.
Right. Although, hey, we'll take that too.
Exactly. But it's bigger than that, isn't it? It's about feeling a sense of fullness, of being in the right place at the right time.
It's about aligning with the flow of the universe.
And this is where things get really interesting for me. Because Tobias suggests that our old ways of thinking about success, about abundance, they don't always apply in this new energy reality.
Right. We have to be willing to release those old paradigms.
So ditch the 5-year plan.
Maybe. It's more about being open to receiving abundance in unexpected ways.
Following our excitement, even if it leads us off the beaten path.
Exactly.
Okay, I can get behind that.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of trust, doesn't it?
It does. Trust in ourselves, trust in the universe, trust in this bigger plan that we're a part of.
Because if we can really tap into that trust, then maybe we can finally relax our grip on all that little you stuff.
Yes, and step into our power as creators.
As conscious participants in the unfolding of our lives.
And the world around us.
This has been amazing, truly. So if our listeners are feeling called to dive deeper into this new energy, to explore what it means for them, what would you leave them with?
I would say, what tiny act of trust can you make today? What spark of excitement have you been ignoring? Because that's where the magic begins, in those small, everyday choices.
It's about listening a little deeper, trusting a little more, being open to being surprised.
Yes, and remembering that we're not alone on this journey.
We have each other, we have our own inner wisdom.
And we have the unwavering support of the universe.
This deep dive has been truly illuminating, and I hope our listeners are feeling inspired to explore these ideas further. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the world of Tobias and new energy. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep trusting the wisdom of your own soul.